Good evening, I'm John Carter. Welcome to Poland Daily Business. The warm summer has benefited beer producers. Premium brands and non-alcoholic beers had a particularly good season with high sales numbers. Żywiec, a Polish subsidiary of the Dutch brewing giant Heineken, did particularly well, with sales in the third quarter amounting to 960 million zloty. That's around $260 million. That's a 20% year-on-year increase. The net revenue jumped up to 117 million zloty, or $31 million. Żywiec is estimated to control around 45% of the Polish beer market. The Polish Parliament has passed new legislation which will facilitate the creation of a 36 billion zloty fund. That's around $9.6 billion. It will be dedicated to repairing, modernising and building new local roads. The new fund was one of the Prime Minister's 5 campaign promises ahead of the Polish election on October the 21st. National and municipal government structures will be able to apply for up to 30 million zloty, or $8 million, in subsidies for every individual project. This is 6 times higher than the current maximum amount. State subsidies from the fund will be able to cover up to a maximum of 80% of the total cost of specific projects. The Parliament has also passed new tax laws. A so-called exit tax will be introduced in January 2019. It will affect both individuals and companies which decide to move their assets abroad. Its introduction was mandated by an EU directive from 2016, which aims to make it harder to move wealth to tax havens. The tax amounts to 19% for corporations and 3% for individuals. The new tax laws also include a lowered corporate income tax for small enterprises from 15% to 9%. The tax on income from intellectual property will also be lowered to 5%. The new regulations are part of a package proposed by the Prime Minister aiming for a friendlier, simple and more transparent tax system. And that's all I've got time for this evening on Poland Daily Business. I'm John Carter. Now it's over to Alexander Wojak.
This is Poland Daily Business Edition. Our guest tonight is Olaf Wojak of Adam Smith Center. Sir, welcome to the show. For many years, Poland has enjoyed the lower meter prices for electric current, and it's about to end this year.
Well, it's not like we had the lowest cost of energy, but it was somewhere in the middle of Europe. But right now, we hear that we're going to pay. Well, we're going to be a country in Europe that's going to pay the most for electricity, and this is something that is really bad for our economy, and this is something that is really bad for all of us. And unfortunately, responsible for it are all of the governments, not only the current one, but the previous ones, mostly, because they didn't work enough on good contracts and to work on a safe environment for electricity and.
What makes the electric current price to rise?
Well, different things. Most of all, our biggest mistake as a country and as a previous government, they agreed to to European Union on contracts of CO2. We agreed to
CO2 emission cuts.
Exactly, and we agreed to pay for it and to lower the emissions, knowing that we have no other solutions of energy but having
black coal.
Yes, using black coal for it. So we have a situation that the European Union is making money on our problem right now. So we have a strange situation in which we are paying more for the contracts of CO2, and we're buying electricity from also other countries. So it's a great interest of our neighbors for us to have this kind of hard situation right now.
It was this year when this emission rights in Europe went public and are traded as financial assets. So their prices grew up from €5 per one ton of emission to 25 euros very recently.
Yes, and so it was one of the first mistakes. Second was not to have having good contracts on electricity with other countries and sources of things that we can change to electricity.
Like Scandinavia, like...
Yes, and this was something that previous governments didn't work enough on, because these kind of contracts you work on decades. You think about next decade. So, well, they haven't think about it, because most of our governments think only about re-elections. So that's why they're not going to put effort in negotiating a contract that's going to be in 10 years. And this right now situation is something that we already are in trouble in. So this government, which had the possibility of changing it in 2 years, well, couldn't build atomic plant in those 2 years.
Which takes at least 20 years to build. So well, maybe 12 years, okay, but that's short.
Few at shortest, but of course it's not about building a atomic plant, but it's about making preparing the situation. You have to prepare the law. You have to prepare ground for it. It's a distribution of energy, and this is the only solution we can have right now of having few electric plants in Poland. As I heard, there are plans to build one really fast, but it's not simple. It's not easy. You have to have a stable law for 50 years for someone to invest in an atomic plant whenever in any country. There are companies that they want to build it, they want to invest in it, but for 30 years they're paying for the investment. 20 years, this is what they will have from it. So this is what they want to earn on it. So that means that you have a promise from a government that for 50 years nothing is going to change. We have a situation in which you can see that our governments change their way of thinking, change their economic decisions each few years. So that means we don't see anyone that can promise someone that for 50 years no one will change the decision. And this is a strategic decision. And we have to understand that there are countries that are willing to pay a lot of money for governments, even for politicians, to have this kind of situation in Poland. Yes, so you have to understand that in interest of Germany is to have a weak neighbor as Poland, because we're going to buy energy from them and we're going to pay them for our certificates.
For our emission certificates. Very interesting position that Poland is in, and definitely we will be fight with this way or another. Olaf Wojak of Adam Smith Center was our guest, and that was it.
Thank you.
For tonight's Poland Daily Business.